Welcome back to another episode of the Savvy Founder Podcast. In this episode, we are going to be diving into 3 of the lessons that I learned from last year. And last year was definitely a highly unpredictable year for lots of reasons. And it was definitely a year that tested my capacity, and it really made me go back to the foundations of tools that I've learned and ways that I have learned to adapt. And so I really think that it's a great year to extract different lessons from. I honestly had issues paring it down to just 3. So perhaps there will be another podcast episode just talking about more of the lessons that I learned over the course of this past year. In life, we either learn by experiencing a situation firsthand, where we gain the lessons and we gain a better insight on what to do and what not to do, or we also can learn by watching or hearing the experiences that others have had. And something that I've always enjoyed is being able to learn from the experiences of others, and that is really my greatest intent with sharing this episode. Last year was a big year for me, especially because I was faced with so many different life experiences, and a lot of them I was not anticipating. And I think when we have experiences like that, there are so many life lessons that can be gained from that. And those life lessons play a huge role in how we show up and who we are as people. And inevitably, that's going to impact how we show up on our businesses and the growth of our businesses as well. And I'm a huge believer that our businesses grow to the extent that we have, which is why I really enjoy reflecting on things that have happened in the past and extracting the gems that I know will benefit me in the future going forward. So the very first one, and these are in no specific order, was a lesson of learning to give myself grace when responding to the unexpected, and to also have a flexible plan in place. There's this saying, and it makes me chuckle every single time I hear it, but when you have an experience that feels like the saying, it's less funny. But the saying is, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And last year had huge curveballs. I actually was looking back a week ago, and I was looking at the vision that I had set for 2023 that I had created in December of 2022. And there were so many things on that list that I had planned that just did not go as planned. And that doesn't make it good or bad, but it definitely challenged my ability to learn how to truly be adaptable and to have a plan, but to also know that changes do come up. And when they do come up, it's okay to have to pivot from that plan. And it was a really powerful lesson in not getting super attached or overly attached to a specific way of doing things. So when I look back at the beginning of last year, there was so much momentum that was being built up, and I was definitely planning on having that same momentum carry on throughout the year. One of the first things that happened in the beginning of last year is I got pregnant, and needless to say, the first trimester was something. It was something. And I honestly wasn't prepared for how that would shift the way that I showed up. I wasn't prepared for how my pace would change so rapidly. And I remember initially I felt really frustrated because I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I was supposed to do this and now I'm not doing it. And so it was really a lesson for me in, hey, sometimes the plan changes and sometimes we have to be flexible. And honestly, because of that change of getting pregnant and, now I have a little one, it's one of the reasons I'm so adamant about business owners having systems and processes in place so that when life does come and metaphorically punches you in the face, that you have a plan that is flexible enough for you to have space to do what matters the most, whether that is taking time to rest or that is being present in other ways that maybe you didn't anticipate originally. The second lesson that I learned was honestly around the law of polarity, which is a universal law if you're not familiar. And really, it's all about literally polarity. Like to the extent that we can have one thing, we can also experience the opposite, and how oftentimes those things are going hand in hand. So the way that this showed up for me last year, and what I really, really learned from that was, for years, my father had been experiencing medical issues. And I don't know about you, but whenever there's significant life events that are happening, especially those where the conversation is one about life or death or someone passing, it really starts to put so many things in perspective. I actually remember back in 2020 when so many things were changing, I had another aha that was kind of similar to this, where there were just so many changes were happening so rapidly that it was a catalyst for how quickly my perspective was changing on what really mattered. And similarly, this is what was happening last year. It had a way of really opening my eyes to the importance of spending time with family, of really being able to be present, of making those long lasting memories was really at the forefront. Because I think whenever we are faced with how much time we might not actually have, I think it definitely has a way of changing our behaviors of how we approach things. Because I don't know about you, but I think sometimes I have definitely experienced getting caught up just in daily life, and I can just feel like, oh, like these things are happening. Yeah, I'm moving forward on my goals, but there are certain things that I'm just not like really focusing on as being the thing that's most important. And I think having and seeing my dad go through that, I think it's one of those lessons that it's unfortunate in the way that it tends to show up, where we gain that deep appreciation for life that is brought about because of realizing just how limiting, or just like how much time we may not have. But it was also powerful because it taught me the power of presence. The experience felt very magnified, like the impact it was having was so much bigger because of also being pregnant at the time and dealing with hormones and all the things. So my biggest lesson from it is just to really make sure and to hold on to how precious life really is, and to not always allow ourselves to get so caught up in just how busy everyday life is, where we miss out on moments that we will literally look back on for years and years to come, and we will later on appreciate how present we were able to be. And another lesson that I learned from that experience of having just those drastic differences happening all at once was that it really brought me back to my why, and how the work that I choose to do and how I choose to share my gift with other people is really about them being able to be more present as well, so that it doesn't take such a drastic event to occur in order for them to prioritize the things that are honestly priceless. So that one's kind of deep, but the third one's less deep because I wanted to end on a little bit of a kind of more upbeat note. So yeah, that lesson was a deep one, and it's one that I really hold on to in terms of making time for things that I think sometimes I could easily allow to like slip by or wait till tomorrow. And I think sometimes we have that realization where we have no idea how much time we have left, and are you using the time the way that you would want to remember it? And I know that this is so morbid in a sense, but at the end of your life, when you're old and gray, hopefully, did you spend your time doing the things that matter the most, or were we so caught up in things that honestly we won't even remember a year from now? And I think that it's such a powerful reminder, especially when we're experiencing things in the moment. Is this something that really matters, or is this just right now it feels big, but in hindsight it really is a blip in the entire timeline? So the third lesson that I learned was all about rest, and knowing that rest is required, and not every season is designed for massive action, and more importantly, slowing down in order to speed up. So for this one, it honestly took me being pregnant to learn this lesson. I remember last summer, and actually it may have been in the spring, I kept thinking about my business and what does it look like to take a step back, because I never really had to do that before. And I was really concerned with, oh my gosh, am I going to lose momentum? Is this going to like be it? Like, this is it. How am I going to get this back? Are people going to be understanding? And there were just so many hypotheticals I remember that were going through my head, and so much weight that I feel like I had put on myself because I never had to really slow down in a way that I knew it was coming and I had no other option. I feel like there's always been times when like little things pop up, but it just felt so much bigger than that. And I remember having these thoughts of, oh my gosh, what is this going to mean? And now that I'm on the other side of it, obviously I have a very different perspective, because hindsight always gives you a different way of looking at things, because you're able to really see them in this full context. Whereas when we're just experiencing something, we're really only seeing what we see right now. We have no idea what's going to happen next. And so the small little lessons or things that feel challenging right now, it's later on we can connect it to, oh, well, that happened, and then now I can do this. This one I resisted the most, and it also brings me back to the importance of not getting so caught up in what is just right in front of you. And that even in business, so I'm going to relate this one back because I know this is a very personal experience that I'm sharing, but even in business, a lot of times we're doing pushes where we're wanting to get more visible. We are doing everything we can to get to the next level. We are launching that new product. We are changing our messaging. We are constantly evolving and growing, and we tend to really focus on what's right in front of us. And I think that sometimes what happens is that we ignore the back end, and really what's left is there is an entire mess to deal with, where if you do actually experience that increase in demand for your services, it can feel so overwhelming because you're already just going from manual task to manual task, making sure all your clients are onboarding, making sure your softwares are syncing up with each other. Oh, did that work correctly? Oh crap, I forgot to message that client about that thing. And there's so many things that is going on that's really making it challenging for you to keep your head above water. And I think that it's similar to exactly what I was saying about the pregnancy and not wanting to lose momentum. There's this common thought about, oh, if I slow down, then I'm going to lose all the momentum, and I've been doing all my action and it's going to be for nothing. But I think it's so important for us to really slow down, get everything in order, so that when you are really hitting the ground running and that you are actually seeing the results of the momentum that you've built, that you're actually able to enjoy it versus it being another source of stress for you, because that's how you're able to be present. And it's a very different way of thinking about what you actually want to achieve, because so often I hear people talk about, I want to reach this income and I want to have this many clients, and there's not much thought that goes into, but like, what will that actually feel like? I think there's this assumption that, oh, when I'm there, it'll all just be hunky-dory, and the problems I'm having won't be there because there will be more money or, something like that. But that could not be further from the truth. And I think when you're experiencing a really big win, it's so much more enjoyable when you can really enjoy it without feeling stressed about what this now is going to demand of you. And those are things that we can plan ahead for, but it does require us to at times slow down before we speed up, because let me tell you, on the back end of this, I had so many concerns, like I said, of, oh, I'm going to take time off. And I did take time off after having the baby, and I didn't really come back until January of this year. And I was able to pick up that momentum that I had before. It was not as catastrophic as I had let my thoughts run wild with. And I gave myself this period of rest, even though I was really resistant to that rest initially. But I'm coming back so much more refreshed with so many new perspectives. And I'm just so grateful that I took that time to really utilize my time in a way that set me up for the future, versus just trying to continue to do something that I knew could get me ahead in the moment, but long term, it would have been a recipe for burnout. This draws so many parallels to what can easily happen in business, where we're just like running, we're going, we're building the momentum, we don't want to let it go. And then you can hit that big goal, and then you feel exhausted and completely burnt out, and you already don't have time. So, like, how is this going to work? Like, what if you just gave yourself a chance to slow down, to speed up? And that was a lesson I had. And now I can keep going without feeling like I gave up so much. And honestly, this kind of goes back to what matters the most and what I said earlier about really being present in business. In order to really see success, you already have to be someone who's ambitious. You're an action taker. You're showing up. You're doing things. And I think because that can be such a huge part of our identity, we struggle to pull back and to let go of some of the control and really see how well we've set up our businesses to help support us. But when you do that, I feel like you get to experience a more fulfilling side of entrepreneurship, which in and of itself can be a very challenging journey, which is why we, focus on communities and all of these other things. These are some of my lessons from last year, and it was from various experiences, most of them very, very personal, and yet still so relevant to the bigger picture of who I am and how I show up in my business and what type of mentor I'm able to be, knowing that these lessons are ones that I can take with me. There's this saying that I learned in my neurolinguistic programming NLP training, and it was just, there is no failure, only feedback. And that's why I really enjoy being able to look at the lessons, even the ones that were painful at the time or things that are really challenging moments. When we are tested and being challenged in ways that is wildly uncomfortable, that's where we experience so much growth as a person. That's where a lot of wisdom is developed. And when we really think about the value that we can provide to others, so much of it is through being able to really gain the wisdom from the experiences we've had and decide what we want those to mean. Lessons or things that we can take with us as we go through these different seasons. And I think because last year had so much variety compared to the year before, it just gave a bigger opportunity to do that. But it was also, I think it was so important that I share, because I know that behind the scenes, especially in entrepreneurship, we have so much that we're dealing with, yet we're still the face of our company. And so just know that, one, you are absolutely not alone. There is so many things that so many people are experiencing on the back end, but also I hope that you feel empowered to be able to use it to grow and gain wisdom. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Savvy Founder podcast. And I would love to know what insights you gained from this episode. So definitely post on your Instagram stories and tag me at Essentially Janae and let me know what you got from this. I will see you in the next episode.